One is that whenever we talk about niching or narrowing your focus, people immediately think, I have to pick an industry and I'm not allowed to work with anyone outside of the industry. That is not what niching or narrowing your focus means at all. I think just personality wise, like who you are comes through, and people are like, I think there's definitely a certain kind of person that is a good accountant. I left my job February 28th of 2020, which was probably the worst day to leave your job. But it actually, it turned out okay, just because there was this period, obviously, where the world stood still.
Today's guest is someone who, like me, has walked the winding road of spreadsheets to strategy and discovered that accounting and creativity actually make a pretty powerful combo. Kristen started her career in public accounting as an auditor, and it wasn't until she moved abroad that she found herself doing marketing for entrepreneurs that she realized how much she actually loved the creative side of business there too. And so, from tech to fashion, legal to real estate, and even high end chocolate brands, she built up an experience in PR, design, social media, and inbound strategy. When she returned to the United States, she landed at a boutique accounting firm where she got to flex both sides of her brain, working as an accountant and a marketer. And that's where the light bulb moment happened. This blend of skills wasn't just possible, it was needed. And that's when she launched Media Books, a marketing agency for accountants, bookkeepers, and tax pros, helping them to elevate their online presence and clearly communicate their value. So critical. Kristen, we're so glad to have you. And it's always fun to meet someone who's rewriting the rules of the industry. And I just want to say welcome.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. It's always kind of I don't know, you hear your bio and you're like, yes, I, my gosh, how did I do all that? I'm somehow made it. But yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Well, here at Diary of a Tax Practice Owner, we love to get the tea. So you have been on a very interesting journey, and I want to hear, how did you end up in accounting, number one, and then tell us the winding road to how you got here today.
Yeah. So I don't think I've actually told this story this far back, but in high school, my dad actually worked as an IT consultant at KPMG.
Mm,
And, you're in high school. My parents were very much like, you go to college for a job. And so we were constantly talking about what do you want to do? And this was also around the '08 recession. And
mm,
so we were having conversations about I need to go to college to get a skill that people will pay for.
yeah.
And I had a really big interest in travel. I just really wanted to travel. And so my dad had actually talked with an auditor, and he was doing a job in London at the time. And the auditor was like, yeah, I travel all the time, and I work with, money, and I do all this fun stuff. And it really appealed to me in high school. So freshman year, I declared accounting as my major with the hopes of kind of handling businesses' money and traveling. And I learned very quickly accountants don't do much travel. And so there was something lost in communication. And yeah, I was like, well, I, declared my major. I don't know what else I would do. I think I really like this. And in college, I did every single internship under the sun. I did nonprofits, I did tax, I did auditing, I did everything. And I landed in auditing. It was the offer that I got, and I took a position with that after college. And I did government auditing. So I would go into different entities like airports and, cities, police stations, different things like that, auditing them. And that was, that was okay. I really like the people that I worked with. Long term, I was like, I don't know if this is kind of a good long term path, but it was really interesting because at that position, I had a good relationship with the partner. And she came to me. This is my first year in public accounting. And she's like, you're really we see you're a hard worker and you're really motivated, but you don't really seem like an accountant. You don't you have this creative streak. And she had me working on other side projects. And she's like, I don't foresee you having a future career in accounting, which is not something you want to hear from
As a
your
first year.
partner. Yeah, as a first year at your first job, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And she's like, so we actually want to transition you to the consulting side of the business. And I had no idea what I was like, I have no idea. I have nothing to share. I'm a first year accountant. I don't know what I'm gonna, but she's like, we'll train you and all this. And the same time she was having this conversation with me was actually the conversation I planned on having with her. Like, hey, I'm gonna actually be leaving to follow my
Mm,
boyfriend to France, which was, it's one of those pivotal moments in your life where it's like you have two roads, which way are you gonna go? And so it's, one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. I think both routes could have been how it could have been a great opportunity. I don't know, ended with happiness and all those things. But I decided to follow my boyfriend and go
Oh,
to Korea.
love. Good
So
for you.
I was in my early 20s. I'm like, you know what? Now's the time. So I did it. He's now my husband. So I feel like I made a good
And
decision
babies
there.
and all the game.
I got babies, we got a house, and we got a dog, we got all the things. So it progressed well. But when I moved abroad, this was in 2016, I didn't have I didn't have very many opportunities in accounting. Like remote work wasn't looked very like favorably,
Yeah.
especially in accounting. I mean, there were concerns about security and all these, all these questions came up. And so one of the industries that I found very welcoming was online marketing. And I had tried, trying to get my name out there with a couple companies, but Upwork was actually where I got my start. And so I did a lot of you know, less than minimum wage jobs just to get that experience thing up
Social
and
media
running.
management for $30 a month kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was pretty rough. But I started doing that just to get experience and my favorite job I will ever have was writing descriptions for a luxury chocolate bar company. 'Cause they're like, "We want you to really, play it up." And I'm like, "And the nutty aromas of the, undernotes with the caramel." And it's
I
like,
hope
I've
they
never
sent you the bars to test so you could make actual, like,
So here's the thing, they did not send me any bars to test.
oh!
No, no, they gave me, they're like, "This is the flavor profile for our,
Oh,
heavenly 75% cacao bar." And I was like, "Okay." So, yeah, but they sounded amazing. And
and
so
you
that was
made them sound amazing.
I did, I did exactly. I made them sound amazing. So,
And then you
yeah.
bite into one day and you're like, "Oh, those are not."
Right, right. Well, I think it was a few years ago, I tried to find the bars and I can't find them online. I'm sure they're around somewhere or they
Yeah.
rebranded, but I was like, "I wanna taste those." That's the job I'll never forget, the one that got away. But it was an awesome opportunity, and yeah, so when I came back to the States, I wanted to go back into accounting, and all the accounting firms I was talking to, they're like, "You also have this marketing experience. Will you also do marketing for us?" And one place I actually ended up working at a boutique firm doing their bookkeeping and marketing. And after a year of that, they said, "Hey, we think you should start your own marketing agency doing this for accounting firms."
Wow,
And
that's a big
yeah,
statement.
yeah. And I mean, it was interesting because I had this similar conversation with my boss where she's like, "I don't see you being an accountant."
Long term, we're gonna
And
be happy here.
yeah, I was like, I don't know what I was doing. And it wasn't that I was destroying people's books. I think just personality wise, who you are comes through, and people are I think there's definitely a certain kind of person that is a good accountant, and I'm not
I
that person.
That's why I left the industry too. Like, I went
Yeah,
in the staff accountant, and I thrived in the projects and stuff that they would give
yeah,
me, and they would put me in front of a spreadsheet and be like, "Cost out all these cherries and pears that we just processed," and I
yeah,
would just be like, "Oh my god." And there I realized 3 years into that job, I was like, one, I don't wanna have a relationship with the spreadsheet, and that's
yeah.
it. I much more enjoyed my coworkers and the projects they gave me, and I was like, "I don't think this is right for me."
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, it's there's an overlap. It's the Venn diagram where there's an overlap personality-wise of yes, we
mhm,
all have this sort of type A personality, but then there's
mhm,
also this creative side where it's I need flexibility to solve these problems because if you
mhm.
make me work in this spreadsheet and these boundaries, I'm gonna go insane. But
And
that's
do it
me.
the same way it's been done for 25 years, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
over and over and over again. And I looked at my colleague and I was like, she had worked up to director of accounting or something. And she had been there for 10 years and she was using the same spreadsheet that she built year 2 of being in that company.
yeah,
And she just had continued to build on this massive spreadsheet every year. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this
yeah,
sounds awful. And I no offense
yeah,
to anyone that's an accountant. It's just that you're lucky that there's people like Kristen and I who have brains that can speak and think in accounting and
yeah,
then also experience this other skill that allows you to have a resource to an expert that can help you think as an accountant but through the lens of creativity and strategy and structure. So
yeah,
I would love to hear. So they said, hey, again, not an accountant. So what are we going
yeah.
to do? So what'd you do?
Yeah, yeah. So I started media books and I've been doing that for 5 years. I left my job February 28th of 2020. which
Oof.
is probably the worst day to leave your job. But it actually, I mean, it turned out okay just because there was this period, obviously, where the world stood still. And I was able
Mhm.
to really put my head down and focus and build my brand, build my website, figure out what I wanted to do. And I mean, through that, I just learned kind of a lot of good virtual networking grassroots principles of marketing. And yeah, we got started. And since then, we've been doing websites, marketing, and really marketing education specifically for accountants and bookkeepers and tax preparers.
Oh, so needed. It's so
Yeah.
needed. Because I think, what's interesting is 2020 shifted this industry dramatically. We have
Yeah.
people on here all the time that was like their pivot point because they were working like pre 2020, pre COVID, everybody was working and operating for the most part under that old school model of had to be in person, had to be brick and mortar, had to be,
Yeah.
leashed to a location. You had to have a firm and a practice, and everyone needed to come into you and a place to drop off. And it was like that was not the lifestyle that a lot of people realized they wanted to have after COVID. And thankfully the industry also had to pivot with technology and provide other alternatives for connection and client experience. And so I think too, because of that and that empowerment, a lot of people went out on their own and they saw,
Yeah.
oh, I can actually do this on my own. Like I don't have to be tied to this old model. And so the thing that I want to talk to you about is with that, a lot of them don't have the marketing experience. And so they're going and working with some of these, I will just say like off the shelf website designers that are
Yeah.
like throwing out these cookie cutter, very bland industry websites. And they're
Yeah.
saying, this is like Janie's CPA firm. You need your taxes done. Come here. Like, and that's really what it feels like. But that's not what you do, right?
Yeah. No, no, no.
Talk to us
So
about how you're different from those cookie cutters, because I think this
yeah.
is what you need to be listening to. If you're here and you're like, oh, I have one of those cookie cutters, no shame, but no, you can do better. And we're going to tell you why it's really critical to do that. So talk to us.
Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. If you think about sort of all the website design platforms out there, and if you're unfamiliar, here's just some of them. There's things like WordPress, Squarespace, Wix,
Mhm.
and a lot of these websites have templates available where you can just go and pick out a template. Most of them don't have templates specifically for accounting firms. They'll be like for service-based businesses, which is
Mhm.
okay. But
Mhm.
again, when you get into that content, it doesn't really guide you as far as how do I need to explain my services? What do I need to say? How do I, show that I'm a trustworthy and reliable person that can handle your information? And that is what is unique about accounting services and putting your information on your website is you need to establish a level of trust and credibility with people before they meet you.
Mhm.
So if you have a website where a lot of the photos are like, I don't know, it's like a piggy bank and a calculator, like that tells me absolutely nothing about you. I can go on the internet and put that together and, that could be a scam artist on the other end.
Yeah.
People want to make sure that the person on the other end is someone that they can trust. And so there are certain things on your website that you should have in order to at least get that relationship off on the right foot and say, hey, I'm at the very minimum a real person, and I have credentials and I am someone that can actually do your books and not mess them up. That's another thing that I think accountants really need to maybe be aware of, work on improving, I guess, is that our industry, there aren't a lot of barriers to entry. And
Mhm.
so we've seen people get burned. I'm sure everyone listening, I mean, unless you're really against this, has done a cleanup
Mhm.
and they talk about their previous bookkeeper and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like who did they pay? They got burned so badly." Having good marketing, having a good website does help fight against that. And it
Yeah.
doesn't really seem like it would make sense. It's like, well, I don't need to, talk. I have my CPA license or I have my EA license. Having your website is where you can really show like I put care and thought into my business. I really care about my clients. I really care about their experience.
Mhm.
I'm going to make sure that's communicated from the moment you see it. You start interacting with me. Your website is really like a virtual storefront. You wouldn't have a brick and mortar store that's, with jackets all over the place. You wanna make
Burgers.
sure yeah, yeah, you wanna make sure it's clearly communicated that, "Hey, I really care about you and your experience, and I'm experienced."
Yeah, 100%. I think the other thing that we're trying to shift people's mindset around with their website too, just so that they can see the value in actually putting effort into it, is that that also can pre-sell your people.
Mhm.
So many people come to us and they're like, God, I'm so tired of answering the phone and someone being like, how much are your services?
Yeah.
You should never have that question happening on a phone call with you.
Yeah.
You building out a proper website that pre-sells people on one, who you serve, because you should not be serving everyone. If you say I do the whole kitchen sink, the people are not going to see themselves in your website. So you want them to come to the website and see themselves in who you serve, because those are the ones that are going to pay you money, that are
Yeah.
going to pay you to fix their problems, provide them a solution, give them the results that they want. So that's one thing. That's what websites can really do. The other thing is that by having your packages properly listed, and this is something we're working with our program on now at Workflows for Tax Pros, because this is such a critical piece, that having your value based packages listed so people can see them and be like, oh yes, this person has the solution. They know, I know it's going to be $3,000 or whatever your price is. They don't get on a phone call with you and then balk at like whatever you tell
Yeah.
them you're going to charge. They're like, oh no, I know I'm going to get this stuff. It's valuable. Those phone calls become so much simpler, so much shorter, because you're just literally solving their problem and answering their questions so that they can close that gap on the final like 15% of trust to say, yes, this is my new tax professional or accountant or bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And so I think that is such a critical thing that people don't think about.
Yeah, yeah. You know, at MediaBooks, we just launched a course, Marketing Academy, talking about just kind of giving accountants the skills they need to market their own firm.
Nice.
And there is one lesson I talk about basically throughout the entire course, and that's buyer personas and market research. And the whole essence of that lesson is you need to know who you're talking to. Because if you
Mhm.
say, oh, I just help businesses, I have all these clients, I can do it for anyone. Okay, so you can do it for the small mom and pop restaurant down the street and the scaling tech company in San Francisco. You may be. Let's say you're an experienced account and you know
You
every
don't want
yeah,
to.
but do you want to? Like, are your processes gonna be so efficient that you can do it for all of those? Some people have pushed back and say, "Yes, I just wanna do it for me. I don't care." Like, okay, that's fine. But I would say the vast majority of you are probably looking to scale. You
Mhm.
probably are looking to have a team. You're probably looking not to be a person that's in the books. And if you do wanna have a business that grows, you can't have efficient processes for every single business out there in the world. And so you do need to do market research and understand your buyer personas, figure out who you're talking to, what do they need to hear, and then speak to that person on your website and in your marketing and have those like clarifying calls of these
Yeah.
are our prices. This is what it includes. And not only that, but this is what you need. I
Right.
already know you so well. This is what you need. There are so many web designers out there that require their clients to provide images of themselves, that require their clients to provide copy for their website. We don't do that because I have yet to meet an accountant that wants to or has provided copy for their
Yeah.
website. And even the photos are sometimes a hit or miss. And so I know my clients, I know what you guys have. We have packages and services and workarounds to
Yeah.
get you up and running.
Can you give them the like, because there might be some people that are like, oh, I know this. What are like two tips you can give them on how to start identifying who their ideal client is so that they can start narrowing their focus down? Even
Yeah.
though, and guys, one thing I want to add is if you're like, that scares me, narrowing your focus does not mean you have to say no to the referral that comes in that is in an like an kind of a shoulder edge
Yeah.
of the client you serve, right? Like you can make the choice as a business owner, like, yeah, I'm actually going to take that client on and I'm going to experiment and see if I like serving them. So, but how can they start thinking about narrowing that focus?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is that whenever we talk about niching or narrowing your focus, people immediately think, I have to pick an industry and I'm not allowed to work with anyone outside of the industry. That is not what niching or narrowing your focus means at all. It
Yeah.
definitely can, but also you can specialize and niche yourself as like an expert in a tool. So, for example, I mean, we're obviously niched in the accounting industry, but I'm also niched as we specialize in Squarespace. So if someone comes to us with WordPress and they don't want to switch, I have people I can outsource them to. I'm saying
Mhm.
if you're on Squarespace or you're interested in moving in Squarespace, I know that platform inside and out. And you
Mhm.
can do the same thing. You can do that with QuickBooks, you can do that with bill.com, you can do that with
Mm-hmm.
Any platform. So you don't necessarily have to think of it industry wise. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you, whatever you do pick, you should be thoroughly obsessed with it to the
Mm-hmm.
point that you're willing to listen to podcasts about them and do research, and in your free time be okay with being part of the conversation. I listen to a lot of accounting podcasts, even though it has nothing to do with me and my job. But I know when I sit down with any of my clients, I can keep up with the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not like, "Oh, like, what do you mean? Like, what happened with Bench? I have never heard of this company before."
Yeah.
No, no, no. I know what's going on. And so that I think is really important, is whatever niche you do pick, you need to be really into hearing about their pain points and listening to their conversations and keep up with their conversations. Because my
Mhm.
gosh, if any industry, any supportive service needs to be part of that conversation, it's accountants.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's so important. And the ways that you can think about it too, that I've, heard called out is, do you have like prior experience in something that you got really smart at, right? Like, is your spouse, do they own a landscape business? Did you grow up in a home where your father owned a construction company, or your
Yeah.
mom worked for a marketing agency, and you were exposed to those environments, so you just kind of naturally can hold the conversation? Like, that's another way of thinking about it too, because we all come from that. I mean, like, look at me. I got an accounting degree because my dad was a CFO, right? And so
Yeah.
I had been exposed to it. And now I can serve this industry. But similar to you, I listen to the podcasts, I go to the Facebook groups, I'm exposed to it all the time. And I think that's just a really important thing to call out. So thank you for
Yeah.
raising that. You can go into, I love working with florists. I love beauty. I'm going to go work with salon owners,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's so many things. If you have a passion personally, you can niche down into that environment and just soak up everything around it, and then really kill it in serving that specific group. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that.
I mean, I think that's how we met, is like, I think there was like a Facebook group or something about like TaxDome.
Mhm.
Had I not spent time learning about accountants, I probably would have never even thought twice about TaxDome, or like what it is, or the idea that you can even integrate it to a website.
Right.
And so that knowledge provides opportunities for networking and connection. So yeah, I mean, whatever niche you have, I would say look at your current interests, look at, your family.
Clients that you love working with and love
Yeah.
having conversations with them about their business, and you could do
Mhm.
it for days and weeks on end.
Yeah.
Those are the ones to start looking at. Yeah,
Yeah.
love that. Cool. So they've identified it. They start thinking about their website. Is there any last steps that you think, like, let's talk a little bit more about zooming out from the website, but like just general marketing and for a couple minutes. Are
Yeah.
there specific tracks that you encourage your accountants, bookkeepers, tax professionals to look at when it comes to doing marketing, more general marketing, so people can start finding out about their website and start knowing that they're out there doing this work?
Yeah. Yeah. So my philosophy with marketing is that it is a creative field. There's a lot of science and theory and, psychology and things like that, but it is a creative field. And a lot of the most viral campaigns, or campaigns that do well, are ones that take risks and step a little bit outside the box of what is normal. And so if you're following some marketers online and they're saying you have to do, reels on Instagram, or you have to be on LinkedIn, I don't like having that sort of messaging, because I believe there's going to be someone out there with a creative strategy who figured out how to find a strategy that works for them, their personality, their business, and find success, and down their own specific road. So I would say have a lot of self-awareness and do a lot of like internal work, figuring out, okay, what do I want to talk about? What do I think I'd be good at? What social media platforms am I comfortable with and I would be comfortable showing up on? And
Yeah.
then where does that sort of cross a line with where my audience would be? Because that's where I think you can start really sculpting what would have a successful marketing strategy for you. So if you have like an interest in like podcasting is fantastic, and you can grow from that on like, really any social media platform and YouTube. Figure out kind of specifically what it is, what your skill set is, and then start to kind of go from there.
Yeah. And I think too, like, shifting your belief that marketing has to be scary or hard. Because I think a lot of people, as an accountant, like as somebody who's a people pleaser and slightly introverted, it's like, it's scary to put yourself out there as a new skill. And
Yeah.
remember, it's a skill. You have to learn, you have to develop it, but you've got to start flexing that muscle so that it can develop over time. And I think the most important thing is if you're not doing marketing, you're not listening to any of those things that she just said, and you're like, oh yeah, I've dabbled in that. Like, you need to start dabbling so you can start being more consistent. And that's
Yeah.
when you're going to start seeing the progress and the progression of things coming in. I know for Jessica, for example, she has, for the last year, she's been a little bit quieter on her social media and like doing actual marketing, but she spent 3 years really working on with someone to help put out posts, make it known that she serves this specific niche of person, blog posts, SEO marketing, like all the things that she started doing in those first 3 years. And now she gets to reap the benefits of showing up on SEO. When someone says, I'm a coach looking for a tax pro, Jessica pops up, right? Like,
Yeah.
those are how she has done the reps to build the muscle, and now the system works for her. And I would just say, don't be afraid to put in the effort, because it will pay off in the long run. And you can't sit behind the camera or the computer screen and say, I'm too scared to go out and do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And that also is how you, like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll network at my BNI and like my local Rotary or whatever. Those are not your ideal clients in most cases, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to expose yourself to your ideal client pockets, Facebook groups, podcasts, as you mentioned, like, get out there into those pockets so that you can raise your hand and say, I am the best at this. You need to work with me. I'm going to make your life so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very intimidating when you say marketing, or like when, like, okay, I want to learn marketing. I'm going to go listen to some marketing podcasts.
Yeah.
A lot of the top like marketing podcasts are for like big like CMOs at like
Mhm.
agencies, and like people that have like, they're not necessarily for, I'm an accountant trying to start my,
Yeah.
business. And so we listen to these podcasts, they're talking about funnels and KPIs and all these metrics you need to track, and it's incredibly overwhelming. And so I always say, like, stop thinking about it like as marketing, it's networking. It's just networking. And like, I'm an introvert, if I have more than one meeting a day, I'm like, okay, I need to get some good sleep like for tomorrow, because it's going to be a lot of talking. And so like, I totally understand like the intimidation of it.
Mhm.
But again, if you're working like from home, or you're, working where you can have a really controlled environment and you can talk online, like you said, it's that muscle that you kind of need to just get going. And that's the thing. I wish there was like a hack for how you can suddenly have motivation and energy. There's no hack other than just to get out and do it and start to feel more comfortable with it. And
The
yeah,
hack
you're gonna
is
feel more.
wanting something that's bigger than yourself today.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
hack, right? Like,
exactly.
it's that I know that the freedom, the lifestyle, the revenue, whatever that is that's driving you, that to get there, I have to change what I'm doing today. And
Yeah.
if you are a small business owner, networking, meeting new people, finding prospects, that is a necessary component. Referrals will only take you so far.
Yeah.
And referrals are going to get you more of what you currently have. So if you love what you have, that's great. If you don't love what you have to step into a different pond to find different fish.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's sometimes a bit of a challenge though for people, just because they're, you know, the idea of starting your own business sounds really great. And then you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I really have to put myself out there. And
Mhm.
it can only go one of two ways. Either you lean into it, or you could have maybe like a nice little freelance where you have just a couple
Yeah.
clients, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if
No.
you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to bet you're trying to build something a little bit bigger than that. And,
Yeah.
and so you really, you need to lean into it and really kind of put yourself out there. And over time, it doesn't feel like putting yourself out there. It just feels,
Mhm.
I'm just working. Like it's,
Part of the job.
yeah,
Part of the
yeah,
job.
this is just part of my job. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it does get easier. That muscle,
yeah,
it's just like running a mile, right? Like, the first
yeah,
time you try to run a mile, you want to die.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
after a few weeks, it's really easy. You're like, oh, I could do two now. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eventually, you'll stop stuttering, stop saying on, weird
I
things, and
still do
you'll
it
have.
5 years later.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. Well, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, you'll have, like, all these little tools and tricks. I mean, my gosh, my first, like, podcast that I did as a guest, it took me probably, like, 30 minutes to get my setup right, and, like, the lighting and everything. And, like, this podcast, by 5 years in, I'm like, "Okay, I just gotta, like, turn everything on and,
I don't have anything in my teeth. I'm
I don't have
good.
anything to do." You can't see any of the toys in the background on the floor or anything. Yeah, and you're like, it's all good, and I think that's the other thing is I'm doing this is now my 5th year being the face of a business.
Mhm.
I got it down. This was definitely not my year one. So if you were just getting started or you're in the early, even if you're not just getting started with your business, but you're starting to put yourself out there, like everything that you've done, it's going to take time.
I just thought of a very important question, and I would love to ask you this. I know we're going a little long here, longer than normal, guys, but this is a really critical question. When it comes to marketing, there's a lot of talk about personal brand. And a
Mhm.
lot of tax professionals, and I think it's just based on what we just talked about, they hide behind the name of their company
Yeah.
and they try to be professional. If you're listening to us, I'm doing quotation marks because they want to be professional. And therefore, when they do branding or they do marketing, it's always about the business, right?
Mhm.
And we talked in earlier about the importance of trust. How do you see the building of trust and the personal brand when it comes to marketing for tax professionals, accountants, and bookkeepers?
Yeah. So,
And maybe define what a personal brand is for everyone, just
yeah.
so they can understand like what that means.
Yeah. So, personal brand, I would say, I mean, it's when you see it's that person is representing a company
Mhm.
typically, or personal brand in regards to a tax firm.
Yeah,
So, the person by name, maybe some of their interests, if they have a family, if what they like to do, travel, things like that. It's the person
their
putting themselves
values,
out there.
I think,
Yeah,
is a critical part.
yeah, exactly. Their values, like, okay, like that person always takes gym selfies, or the fact that they're on a walk, like they really value their health, or they're always talking about how they leave, early to pick up their kids from work. That it's that personal brand, allowing someone to get to know you as a person
Mhm.
versus focusing on a company where it's going to be talking about your services, talking about deadlines, talking about nothing
What taxes
really.
are and how to save
Yeah,
money on taxes and
exactly. It's educational content, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with educational content, but you have no idea anyone that works at that business. Maybe you see a familiar face from time to time, but there's
Mhm.
absolutely no like, oh, I know that person, really likes or saw the movie The Accountant. There's no like sort of personal relationship that you're building with the person on the other end. So that's typically what we think of, or that's typically what people do when they try to lean into a more corporate brand. Having said that, earlier, I mean, I said, with marketing, there's always a creative strategy that sort of goes beyond the norm. Personal brands do really well because you're building a relationship with someone and you're starting to trust them and you're starting to feel like, okay, my values align with your values. I know you're someone that I would feel comfortable sharing my information with. And I kind of feel like, you're not going to judge me,
Mhm.
or I feel like I can ask you questions. That's what a personal brand does. In the same vein, though, there's also tax businesses and, accounting firms that have a company brand. They're focusing more on the company brand, but in doing so, they're bringing in all of their team members and giving you familiar faces and making that content relatable. So, for
Mhm.
example, there's one accounting. Oh, I don't even know if they're accounting. They may be a law firm now that I think of it,
That
but
can
they have very
apply.
much.
Same
Yeah,
agency,
they're in professional services, but they do a lot of content where it's like talking to different people in their office. So it's like the owner of the business, and they'll be like, okay, so out of everyone on the team, who do you think is the most likely to arrive late to the, all hands meeting? And who is most likely to order the most or eat the most smelliest thing at lunch? And they're like bringing you into the company culture and you're starting to get a feel for their values. They no longer seem like that buttoned up, your dad's accountant where you're scared to ask them a question. They're real people on the other end. You can see their values. They have personality behind it. Your
love that.
brand is the personality of your business. And so it's really just a question of, do I want people to know me as a single personality, or do I want them to see everyone on my team? Either
Yeah.
one is okay, but really, again, it's showing the personality, it's showing the values, and that's where I think you really find people allow you into their lives, allow you into their financials, and
Mhm.
and kind of trust you more. And
Mhm.
not only that, but you're going to find that those sales calls also get easier. It's
Mm.
no longer about just like, hey, like, what are your services? Tell me about you. Where do you live? It's, hey, I really liked your reel that you did where you talked about how your coworker has a smelly lunch. I thought that was really funny. Hopefully he doesn't order that again. Ha, ha, ha. And so suddenly, like, you have this rapport with them
Yeah.
that you've done by building up your entire social media presence. So I hope that kind of does that answer
Yeah,
your
no,
question?
that's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to break that stigma of marketing being a picture of a calculator and my business
Yeah.
logo, right? Like, because that's not going to make me feel comfortable coming to you. It's going to be like, oh, if I'm in a pinch and they pop into my screen at that moment. But you want to be the person that when I've watched your stuff for a little while, or even I had a really bad experience, you make me realize that it doesn't have to be that way that I've experienced. It can be something else. It can be better. It can be you. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to come to you. I'm going to be
Right.
like, oh, let's explore this because I might be worth the move over to
Right.
another professional and the burden of that. So
Having said that, I know I also I know time-wise we're
yeah,
going a
we're
little
going
bit
long.
over.
It's all right. Hang around with us if you want. This is good.
Yeah, no, I wanna actually share. So, here's it like, I also have a podcast, and a lot of times I'll get people in my inbox saying, "Hey, can we meet for virtual coffee?" Sometimes I'll say yes, sometimes I'll say no, and I'm like, "Eh."
Mhm,
And usually when we do, they wanna be on my podcast, which is okay, which is
mhm.
fine. But usually it's like, "Hey, can I somehow get in front of your audience?" And when you had reached out to me, you did something different. You actually, like, looked through my portfolio on my website, and you're like, "These are your clients that are using TaxDome. Here's ways that they can improve it." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so right." Like, it wasn't like, there was actually, like, a relationship building. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the thing is with people, when you're trying to build these relationships online with people, we don't wanna be that I know people don't wanna be that person on the other end where they're just asking for something in return. But when you're online and like, you clearly have that muscle, you're building relationships with them, you're like, "Okay, here's how I can help you, here's how you can help me. I
Mhm.
see an area, a pain point where I can actually weigh in. I'm gonna reach out and actually help them." And
Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference in the relationship going forward is like, "I'm actually here, I really wanna help, and I have the skills to do so. Let me, show you how I can do that."
Yeah, 100%,
And so, yeah.
100%. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been so good. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all your wisdom. Guys, seriously, Kristen knows her stuff. She builds beautiful websites. Please go check it out. We'll have all the links below to the Media Books website so you can go and see her portfolio. You can check out her marketing course if you're like, I think I need some help in that. It's a very affordable course to get a lot of good foundational information. So if this is all like I'm feeling like I need to do this, but I have no idea where to start, that would be a really great starting point. So check that out. And also, if you're wanting a website, like do look at her portfolio. She's going to guide you through the whole process. As she pointed out, like she helps you with the copy, she helps you with the photos, she helps you with the whole thing. And that can be such a game changer in what you're doing. And then once you have that beautiful website, you can come to Workflows for Tax Pros and we'll teach you how to pre-sell all of your clients through automation so that you just have this beautiful website out there hanging out and you're sharing your world, your values, your funniness onto social media. And it's going to be a game changer for you in the next 2 to 3 years. And you're going to really love the business that you're building because it's going to be just the dream business that you want. So
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. Yeah, this was a
yeah.
lot of fun.
Good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of Diary of a Tax Practice Owner and keep building towards the business and life that you love. We'll see you again soon.